are encouraged to go on top of that grave if needed. We have just over 420 vaults in the cul-de-sac cemetery that are currently in use, with the exception of a few that were created for kids. We are currently in the process of building a few more, but as land is limited and the hillside is extremely steep, we are also limited to the number of vaults that we can build. In 2022, we had 258 deaths on island. We had 241 in 2021 and 233 in 2020, and in 2019, 194. The numbers went up during the last few years, as an average between 2010 and 2018 were 174. With these numbers, we forecast that by the year's end, solution would be needed to be found. Our immediate solution is being undertaken the world around the use of urn vaults for loved ones. This means persons will be cremated and placed inside a vault that is a fraction of the size used by the traditional coffin. This is currently being looked at as a viable long-term solution. We will continue to have much-needed conversations with the stakeholders and present a plan of action when the time comes closer. We are also in the process of seeking land to accommodate the need that we have for burial space. In regards to the Parliament Committee meeting, as you may know from the previous announcements, the spatial planning plays a pivotal role and allows our infrastructure to grow. When we fail to plan, unfortunately, we end up with situations such as the dump and the cemetery. It is my wish as Minister to see all this done in a safeguard our infrastructure for years to come, as this requires much-needed planning. Last week, I met with the members of Parliament to present the spatial development strategy. The spatial development strategy envisions our national spatial planning until 2030 and provides guidelines on how to carry out this vision. It aims as a sustainable spatial development, meaning that spatial development should meet the needs of the present without compromising the future generations to meet their own needs. Therefore, a balance should be sought between the economic, social, and environmental domain when developing and preserving our scarce space. The strategy also serves as a framework to establish the legislation area around specific policies for the built and natural environment. For example, zoning plans, updated St. Martin building codes, our nature policy, and a countrywide sewage master plan. The members of Parliament showed appreciation for the effort and saw clarity in few areas. I look forward to updating them in the coming weeks as I return to Parliament with the answers. In regards to our sewage network on Mount William Hill, on Sunday, between 7 p.m. and 7:30 p.m., the Ministry of Rummy was alerted of a breach of Pit 4 in Dutch Quarter sewage line, causing sewage to leak out of the pit onto private property. The leak was contained on Sunday evening when Rummy's emergency response team from the Department of Infrastructure Management responded and provided an immediate temporary solution to stop the leakage onto the private property. Pit 4 is the last and final stop between a series of similar pits that caters to the sewage network of household connections in the greater Dutch Quarter and Belvedere area. While Pit 4 being the last pit in the chain, this pit is responsible for the final haul of pumping sewage over the top of Mount William Hill to the collection plant at Illage Road. Infrastructure Management has since executed a structural analysis of Pit 4 and has concluded that this and other pits in Dutch Quarter were not installed with a liner barrier between the liquid sewage and the concrete, causing inner walls of the pit to become deteriorated over time. Although this leak was not predictable, the issue surrounding the pits is being at the end of lifespan, which caused them to be slated for replacement as part of the Dutch Quarter EDF project, which officially kicked off in 2018. The continuation of this project was held up due to litigation between the contractor and government, and in February of 2023, parties will return to court. The ministry has put a plan of motion to bypass Pit 4 by making the adjustments to the network. However, in the interest of public health, for the meantime, the transfer of sewage at Illage Road facility will take place by the means of a trucking in the next coming days while the bypass is being installed, so to speak. So it will take place via trucking while we're busy with the bypass. We're also engaging in conversations with the landowners where the pit is located to ensure that we carry out all our plans effectively and efficiently and also include all stakeholders. In regards to Diamond Hill, it was brought to my attention yesterday that a historical landmark located on the Diamond Hill Estate property was demolished. It was revealed that persons yet to be identified used heavy machinery to demolish a structure under the guise of night. As Minister of Vrami, I strongly condemn these actions to those who destroy the structure such as a historical value to our nation. Although to my understanding, the structure was not registered under the protected monument list, it is no secret to the landowners that they hold an immense value. Sadly, when we see things like this happen, persons place more value on monetary gain and less on our heritage. This atrocious disregard for our tangible heritage cannot be condoned. I've already instructed the staff of the ministry to take the necessary steps to find the persons responsible for this action. We will continue working along with the Ministry of Education, Culture, Youth, and Sports as monuments are under their ministerial scope. Also, I will be in contact with the Ministry of Justice as we seek to find to bring these perpetrators of this action to light. I encourage my colleague Minister of Culture to immediately begin his investigation and determine what is left on the property and if it can be placed by ministerial decree as on the protected monument list. We do not know what value can be underneath. We should not sit back and allow the possibility of construction to further damage any potential artifacts. As minister, I am ready to put a hold on any request for permits of any sort that could be in the process of being requested. The protection of our land and culture is paramount. While I have already heard some may say the process is difficult, I would like to remind them, a pessimist sees difficulty in every opportunity. An optimist sees opportunity in every difficulty. I thank you and I look forward to any questions members of the media might have.
Thank you, Minister Duran, for your opening remarks. At this time, I would like to invite the Honorable Minister of Education, Culture, Youth, and Sport, Dr. Anders Rudolph Samuel, to address you. Minister Samuel, you have the floor.
Thank you, Ms. Roach, and good morning to you and to the team of CoM. Good morning to our Prime Minister and my colleague ministers. Good morning to the people of St. Martin. Welcome to the media. It has come to the attention of the Ministry of Education, Culture, and Sports that the ruins at the revered historical site Diamond Plantation, home of Diamond 26, the place that was one of the catalysts towards freedom and emancipation of the enslaved St. Martin community, has been partially demolished. The ministry can confirm that there were the ministry can notify that we were not notified prior to this activity taking place. As Minister of Education, Culture, and Sports, I express my sadness at this outrageous act against the heritage, legacy, culture, and the traditions of St. Martin. The Ministry of Education, Culture, and Sports in no way condones this arbitrary manner of destruction of St. Martin's legacy and history. The Monument Ordinance describes a monument as a movable or immovable property which was made at least 50 years ago and which considered to be of general interest because of its beauty, its artistic value, its significance for science, the history of the country, or its ethnological value. The Diamond Hill Estate, though not a protected monument, still falls under this definition. The St. Martin community has over the years endured so many of our monuments being desecrated. We have now reached a phase in our history where there is a momentum where responsibility, accountability, and awareness towards heritage preservation is on the rise. I, as Minister of Education, Culture, and Sports, encourage all citizens to be vigilant, be alert. Our monuments, our historical sites, pay homage to the ancestors that toiled and built this nation. Diamond 26 Plantation is of great significance in that this was the beginning of the revolution that brought freedom to the St. Martin enslaved community. The Diamond Plantation played a pivotal role as those 26 freedom-loving St. Martiners ran for freedom, laying the groundwork for the de facto Declaration of Emancipation in 1848 of the 15 years before 1863. The diamond plantation is significant for its pivotal moment in the St. Martin history toward liberation, beginning with those 26 enslaved men, women, and children of the diamond plantation. The persons who did this, I, as minister, condemn this cowardly act of coming like a thief in the night to destroy our history. The legacy of Diamond 26 and the legacy of Diamond Plantation will not be destroyed. We give honor, respect, and reverence to all buildings, both registered and unregistered monuments that have been built by the hands of the enslaved, built by the hands of the liberated, of that took freedom in their hands and ran for freedom. The Ministry of Education, Culture, and Sports denounces the persons that destroyed a sacred and historical site and is working together with the Ministry of Rome, as my colleague said, on this matter. Should you require further information, please contact the Department of Culture at the Government Administration Building, Swaliga Road, number 1, Great Bay, St. Martin, or via telephone 542-2026 or 542-0349. We indeed, as colleagues, ministers, Vromi and Justice, and the rest of the government, will get to the bottom of this and definitely will do what we have to do in order to protect the legacy of St. Martin. On another note, I would like to inform that the teachers and the general public that the payment for those teachers that took part in the National Summer School Project, the payment is in its final stage. The MBs that had to be signed are signed, and the LBAs have been sent for ratification. I expect payment for the teachers to take place within short. In another story, in regards to the situation with the students of Excellent Academy, I can inform the public that I have had discussions with the persons responsible for Excellent Academy. One of the areas that I have paid much attention to from the day I started this job is that something is done for our special needs students. We have worked on the special needs policy and have done an assessment of the various types of special needs on St. Martin. The assessment report is being completed, after which we will conclude the special needs policy. In regards to the students at Excellent Academy, I want the parents and all concerned to know that a solution is being worked on. It's another story. My trip to Curaçao last week in regards to the 4-country consultation meetings handled 2 major topics, which were culture and education. The meetings were very productive and successful, and we were able to make some good decisions for our students who planning to go further their studies abroad. One of the major problems students have when they go to Holland is that they would have to wait on the BSN number. Now, this would no longer be an issue. In a subsequent release, I will go into more details regarding the meeting that took place in Curaçao. I know that in the past weeks, there was much release about the NEPA situation. At this moment, I would like to inform the public that I have received one letter on the 22nd of November from Mrs. Oldine Bryson Ponteflet, in which Mrs. Ponteflet informed me that she resigned from the board of NEPA. In the same email, I was informed by Mrs. Bryson that she regret to inform me that her resignation was prior. That letter is being dealt with by the department for a replacement of Oldine Bryson Ponteflet as a representative of education on the board. On November 15th, I received another letter from the Minister of VSA, Minister Otley, for the replacement of Mrs. Dross Richardson. And this letter too is being worked on in order to give my colleague minister a response on this. Lately, I received emails from Mrs. Dross Richardson in regards to the topic of the statutes and the board of directors of NEPA. And I am busy analyzing this. And when I'm done, I can give the public a more detailed report on this issue. There was a meeting request from the Windward Islands Teachers Union with my person, and I would like the public to know that that meeting took place. And in the meeting, we looked at the letters that were written by the union, and we have made a decision to separate the letters in two parts. One part that had to do with vacation days and one part that had to do with vacation pay. The letter regarding the vacation pay was a letter that requested not only the Minister of Education, but also my colleague ministers to be in the meeting. So that letter was also sent to the Council of Ministers to plan a date for the meeting. The letter regarding the vacation days was explained to the union what the situation really was, and that the 61 days of vacation for the teachers have not been changed. The union indicated that based on the law of the Netherlands Antilles, that we were not keeping in line with the legislation, and we were able to indicate to the union that the law of the Netherlands Antilles in regards to vacation days was already changed. We have also promised to send this information this week to the union so that they can be able to peruse it on their own, and then they can always come back and we can continue to deliberate. The meeting was a quiet meeting, and the meeting was under an hour. I am happy to announce that the lights on the tennis court and the basketball court at the Melford Hazel, that those lights are now working, and that especially the youth in the area who uses the court can now use the court a little bit later on during the night. They are not on all night, but now they can use the court more frequent. I would like to also mention that I have to go to Parliament for 11, so I will hold on, I think at least till 1:45. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Samuel, for your opening remarks. At this time, I would like to invite the Honorable Prime Minister and Minister of General Affairs, Severa Jacobs, to address you. Prime Minister Jacobs, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Rolika. Good morning to you. Good morning to my colleague ministers here present. Good morning to the members of the media, and of course to the people of St. Martin. Thanks always to our support staff at Department of Communications for enabling this broadcast. I've chosen to start this week in gratitude and hope, with a renewed drive to continue to push forward in building a strong nation. The Corporate Governance Conference that we held over the weekend, Friday and Saturday, was well attended, and it proves to me and to all in attendance, as well as to all who may have read the broadcasts about that our people, our own people here on St. Martin have an interest, that all of them who are in supervisory or management functions or aspiring to be are eager to learn, to grow, and to serve St. Martin. We continue to say we don't have. But at that conference, I was able to proudly see that we do have. And we do have people that are willing, able, and are doing the work, and that we are growing in that regard. So I thank all of them. And then The dialogue over the weekend on our slavery past, on the steps that we as a country collaboratively have to take to ensure that there is awareness of our history. And then listening to what is being or what's happening now shows even more why that is needed. The inclusion of all the voices and making sure that St. Martin is leading in any discussion related to negotiating reparations due to St. Martin as a result of a period of enslavement, the subsequent colonial system, some of which we still feel today. So I want to thank also all those who came out in numbers and filled the room to overflowing here at the government building, ensuring that any future dialogue has to be planned in a larger space. It shows that we are interested in St. Martin's heritage. We are interested in where we are today and where we're going, and see this as an opportunity, as my colleague minister said. We may not have liked the manner in which it was thrust upon us, as a lot is, but we're not going to make a mistake to miss the opportunity to gain for St. Martin. Because as the Vice President, Mr. Omar, mentioned in his speech, in his address to the crowd, he, as the Vice President of the CARICOM's Reparations Committee, stated that it is a long road. It is not something that will happen 1, 2, 3. But the steps we are taking as St. Martin is being watched in the region. Even independent countries haven't reached to the point where they can have this discussion with their former colonizers. And so it will set a trend for how future discussions will happen throughout the region, and they're willing to offer us that support. So St. Martin is committed. We will see this through in a transparent and collaborative manner, taking the stakeholders in the community into account in everything that we do. And it is the intention that we come out of this looking forward to ensure that our delayed development, which all the Caribbean has faced, and ensure that we can stand tall in the region on our own feet. That is the end goal, that we can stand tall on our own feet, and that development goes where it needs to go with us in the driver's seat, providing opportunities for our people to thrive right here on St. Martin. And so while I try to focus on the positivity of that, I was then faced with what is the reality of what happened with the demolition of the ruins at Diamond Estate. My heart is heavy. My mind is boggled at this time, when so much attention is being paid on heritage, that this could be done. The ruins at Diamond Estate were recently discovered. I wonder if people even knew that. A young man, and we always talk of our youth, a young man of 20, in his treks through the bush, found it. The bush was cleared, and just last July, we celebrated Emancipation Day there for the first time. Every year, for the longest, we've been reenacting the Diamond 26 run. And though maybe it's a small group of people that do it, and only a few people know about it, the interest has been growing, and the property owners knew this. So several more ruins were discovered over the past few months, and so the steps were not taken at that time or yet to formally protect it. But we know also that anything of a certain age should be naturally protected. And so it hurts the heart. It hurts my heart, and I'm happy to hear from the ministries of ROMI and ECYS that the necessary steps will be taken to deal with that, because there are more in the bush. There are more ruins in the bush. And so it is up to us to ensure that we identify those and ensure their protection while still promoting development on the island. Because at the end of the day, these heritage sites can become economic drivers for the country as well. So while preserving the ancestors, the memories, and commemorating that on Emancipation Day and other times, writing the history that is needed for that, it can be a place to visit. It can become part of the tourism that we want to create, the niche tourism. So We must not lose sight of this, and I ask my colleagues to continue to stick on it, and I too will continue to ensure that we as government do the necessary to protect that as well as other sites that may be in peril of being destroyed. And again, the community has a role to play. If you know, tell us so that we can identify it as well. There's also a monument council in place. Unfortunately, I have to announce that due to unforeseen circumstances, the town halls that were scheduled for this week will have to be postponed, and I will be updating you once they have been rescheduled. This week also has good, let's say, things happening for St. Martin in that projects that have been ongoing are being handed over, completed, that were under the trust fund. The emergency projects, ERP1 projects, several of them are being handed over this week. Yesterday or Monday, we saw the official handover of the 6 homes in Belvedere, the 6 blocks, 64 homes, therefore enabling 64 families to get back in, restart their lives in a new space, protected, safer, upgraded, and this trend should continue now for the rest of the homes in there to be upgraded in similar fashion. And I know the Minister of Romy, together with the SMHDF, are focused on doing that. But this is indeed a great start. We're seeing also schools being handed over this week, today, later today, as well as the ambulances that have been purchased. These are quite a few things that have been happening. We've already received quite a number of things, the shelters, the vehicles for government, other school buildings have been partially repaired, etc., and the fire and ambulance building as well. So we continue to focus and push that all the projects that are in preparation and to be executed can be. Of course, we're facing some challenges with financing that it may, with the rising costs, be challenging, but we will continue to focus to get as much done as possible as had been initially planned. Lastly, I would like to mention that the Ministry of General Affairs has started an employee satisfaction survey of the government employees. This is something I've been long awaiting, and as part of our being able to ensure that being employed at government is a satisfactory one, that we are doing all we can to ensure that our workers can come to work feeling validated, valued, and able to carry out the tasks that they're hired to do to the best of their ability. We needed that feedback from them. So I am encouraging all our employees to fill in the survey anonymously. There will be no manner of tracing your responses. And the aim of this is to improve the services to you as our employees and ensure that we're doing all we can to attract and keep the employees that we need. That is the goal, and I look forward to getting the results of this survey so that we can start dealing. With that being said, I thank you for tuning in to our brief, not so brief, opening statements, and look forward to any responses or questions from the media. Thank you, Relaika.
Thank you, Prime Minister Jacobs, for your opening remarks. If you've just joined us, you are watching the live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday, January 25th, 2023. Thank you for joining us. We now move on to the question and answer session. Bibi Hart Shaw of SMN News, you have the floor.
Thank you, Rolika. Good morning, colleagues. Good morning, ministers. Rolika, I'd like to ask the Minister of Education a clarification before I ask my first question. Minister, in your statements regarding NEPA, I did not hear you state whether or not you received the amendments that, according to the board, they announced, they told us, they even posted on Facebook that the amendments were sent to you. I'd like to know if you received those as of March 2021, because I didn't hear it from you. And also, can you tell us if the teachers of the Excellence Academy, if they got paid? I was told that some of them were not paid since October. I didn't hear that in your statements. My question is to the Minister of Romy. Minister, I took note of your extensive opening statements regarding Dutch Quarter. in my opinion, Minister, the goalpost continues to move when it comes to the EDF project that started in 2018. The last time I asked questions about this, I asked specifically if the fine that was given to Windward Roads, if government was looking into getting Windward Roads to complete that project. Minister, are you at all concerned about the health hazard residents of the Quarter are facing with the sewage stench because of the pit that collapsed and even sewage water that they are saying is now pumped into the storm drain? Are you at all concerned about the health hazards that this poses?
Minister Samuel.
Thank you. Thank you for the question, Ms. Shah. First, I would like to explain that Excellent Academy is a private institution and it does not fall under the Ministry of Education, Culture, Youth, and Sports and do not receive any subsidy from the Ministry of Education, Culture, Youth, and Sports. The academy spoke to me in the past and requested information as to how they can obtain subsidy from the ministry. All relevant information was given to the academy, and the ministry is awaiting the answers to the questions that were posed. That the teachers haven't got paid, the Minister of Education, Culture, and Sports would not know that answer, as that does not fall under my jurisdiction. What I have informed you and also the public is that I am working on a solution, and I do care about what happened to those students and all other students. I believe special needs students are special to us, and they do need our attention, and this is one of the areas I have been paying attention to from the onset. So I am doing my best to really get a solution for the group. In regards to the email from Mrs. Dross Richardson in regard to NEPA, I have clearly indicated that I did receive emails and that I am looking at them, and I will then come with a subsequent release in order to explain what I have received and what I did not receive. I understand that the media and maybe others are really waiting to see what is the situation, but I believe when I speak, I should not have to come back and say, oh, I missed one email or I didn't miss an email. I thank you.
Thank you, Minister Samuel. Minister Duran.
Yes, thank you, Roleka. Thank you, Baby, for the question. Just to begin at the beginning, so to speak, with respect to the EDF project. This project started, as I mentioned, back in 2018 officially. It stopped like twice before that. It started back right before the election, I think, of 2020. And subsequent to that, it stopped again. I've explained publicly also in this particular platform that it has had our full attention. We even reprioritized the work that was geared towards Windward Roads to do Phillipsburg, West, I believe, and also partial part of Foga and Illidge Road to the Dutch Quarter project for us to reach up to par in terms of the progress of that work. So, I mean, that in itself is evidence that we are pushing forward. I mentioned a couple of weeks ago that we did receive certain quotations, and we're now in the stage where we're negotiating the price. Of course, I always say that we have to make sure that everything is in government's interest, so to speak. So certain prices were a bit high, so we're busy discussing that to lower the price in order for us to start with the works back in Dutch Quarter. You asked me a question in regards to the pump pit. I mean, I'm here now for 3 years. That has been there, I think, I don't want to say before I was born, but maybe when I was 3 years old, it was decided to pump sewage over a hill. We are at a war with gravity because that's just the reality of it. However, it is my problem to fix. Now, you asked me if the health of the residents of Dutch Quarter, if I'm in any way concerned about it. I'm definitely concerned about it. Just on a personal note, Dutch Quarter supported me overwhelmingly during the last election, and that doesn't have anything to do with it, but I represent the entire country. So if there's an issue in Dutch Quarter, there's an issue in Sugar Garden, Beacon Hill, wherever, it is a concern of mine. I was there on site yesterday discussing and brainstorming with the team, how can we fix this as soon as possible with minimal damage? But reality is what it is. There's also a situation where the land was never paid for by the government to the landowners, and that was discovered a couple months ago, which we are now in discussions with them in order to remedy that situation. Again, another 25-year-old problem that was not addressed. But I just want the general public to have, and I don't even know how to ask the people of Dutch Quarter for patience, because I understand their frustration. However, it has my attention. We're pushing forward on it. I have a meeting 2 o'clock today with the landowners. We are, in the meantime, pumping as we speak. Right now, as we're speaking, we're busy pumping so that we can limit the side effects that residents may face. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Minister Duran. Thank you, Bibi, for the question. Viewing and listening public, I would like to inform that the Honorable Minister of Education, Culture, Youth, and Sport, Dr. Anders Rudolph Samuel, did have to depart the meeting in order to be at his 11 o'clock Parliament meeting. I would now like to invite Lyndon Brown of BCN TV. You have the floor.
Good morning to the people of St. Martin and the ministers that are present here today. With sadness, Minister, as Minister of Rome said, the destruction of the monument is not acceptable, Minister. Can you define if there is a crime committed? And also, do you have a number of how much monument that there here in St. Martin? And has there been any identification that landowners, okay, anything to identify to say, listen, look, it's your property, but there are monument here and you cannot destroy. It is very hurtful, seeing that the legacy of slavery, what our foreparents have went through, Minister. So can you clarify these 3 aspects?
Would you kindly indicate which minister you'd like to have answer that?
Prime Minister and Minister of Rome, seeing that it is something that concern us. So both of you can address.
Okay, Minister Vromi will deal with the land issue and what he already stated in his opening statements in terms of permitting and stuff like that. Minister Samuel is the Minister of Education, Culture, Youth, and Sport, under which heritage and protection and the subsidies for monument councils fall. So he would be able to better give you or the Monument Council the list of protected monuments on St. Martin. I believe that is something that he should be able to get from the relevant organization, or you can also ask them yourself. However, what I think was reiterated here is that while the site was not yet recognized as a monument officially, it was recognized as a heritage site in the state in the sense that it is the ruins from a time long ago. So particular age of a ruin can determine that it is a monument. So that has to be finalized within the Ministry of Education, Culture, Youth, and Sport with the Monument Council. And that information will be brought out to the public from that ministry and that department. Minister did say you can get further information from Ms. Clara Reyes, the department head at Culture, and he mentioned the phone numbers as well. But I think it's imperative for us to know that we have ruins all over the island, that this is not a new phenomenon. I remember this discussion several years ago at the Vineyard when there were buildings being built. So it's an ongoing challenge that we face. And there are international agencies that will be able to give you funding maybe to restore monuments. And persons who have monuments on their private property also have their challenges. So it's a discussion that needs to take place. And I will leave the rest of the discussion in terms of whether a crime was committed officially or not to the Minister of Rome, as he had indicated that was being investigated in terms of permitting, etc., not being in place for the demolition.
Yes, just to dovetail a bit of what I mentioned earlier, so I'll just reiterate it. Any sort of permit request and like that will or could or is at the department, which we do not have on record until now, will be put on hold. I'm ready to put it on hold until a thorough investigation is carried out between the Department of Culture and, of course, the inspection department at the Ministry of Rummy for us to determine what is left there, what can be done in terms of salvaging our heritage. I mentioned that before, so I'd just like to reiterate that point.
Thank you, Minister Duran and Prime Minister Jacobs. I would now like to invite Andrew Dick of TV15. You have the floor.
Thank you, Ms. Roach, and good morning to St. Martin and the ministers present here today. My question is for Minister Duran. As a follow-up to the monument situation, the courthouse is also being refurbished, expanded. Is there a permit for that monument?
I'll have to double check specifically, but in any works that is taking place, once it's not of any sort of profound nature, then it would not require a building permit. But I would have to inquire once the permit already has been issued. So then I would believe with the Monument Council would give permission on how to, but you asked me about a building permit. I'm not part of the Monument Council, nor does it fall under the Ministry of Romy. So the Monument Council, maybe the Prime Minister would have more information as a former Minister of Culture in respect to how that works with permitting from their end. But on my end, it would not require any building permit if you're tweaking, renovating what is already there.
Yes, so I can add that if it's being done in the exact same way it was before, that there's no new permits required. You just have to maintain the level. When you have a monument that needs to be refurbished, it has to go through a process, and that process was done.
Thank you, Prime Minister Jacobs and Minister Duran. We now move on to the second round. Bibi, you have the floor.
Thank you, Relaika. Minister Duran, what is your opinion of the state of the infrastructure when it comes to the entire infrastructure? Untidiness, potholes, malfunctioning streetlights, overgrown grass is in trenches, and garbage on the roadside. What is your opinion about that? And Minister, if I remember correctly, I think 2 years ago, there was a joint project that was to be launched by the Ministry of Romy and TIAT, whereby I believe Front Street, back and back street, including the boardwalk, was supposed to be upgraded. Since then, I do not know where this project is. Can you tell us where it is? And because since then, Minister, there've only been quick fixes. Can you tell us what's the plan of action with the project that was announced 2 years ago?
No, Bibi, I'm not sure which project you're referring to 2 years ago. However, yes, indeed, there have been discussions about improving the infrastructure in Phillipsburg. But just to be quite frank, it all boils down to money and having sufficient funds to execute these things. I would love to lift up every single brick in Front Street and put it back down brand new and keep doing that every year. A sentiment that is widely expressed within the ministry is that we are good at building things but not good at maintaining them. And lack of maintenance is what led to what we had, up to a year and a half ago when we did the emergency works, which was December of 2021. Now we see after over a year that the bricks are somewhat bubbling again, some of them, but very few, so not as much. And we plan to carry out the works we can, but all in the constraints of budget. We requested capital expenditure budget, which we are awaiting feedback on that. You asked me about the streetlights. I'm not going to give you my opinion. I'm just giving you the facts. Coincidentally, I've been in discussions with GB maybe for the last 2 months because we have a streetlight management agreement. And in my opinion, they have not been living up to their end of the bargain. It reached to the point where yesterday, Monday, I sent them a letter to that effect with a breakdown of questions and so forth. So I didn't want to make it public until I got a response from them, which I would do once I received their response. But I've been receiving a tremendous amount of complaints about some streetlights malfunctioning. There was discussion about introduction of a new program that caused this, but I'm saying that if you have a streetlight management agreement, although government is ultimately responsible for it, it is your duty to communicate to the public when there's downtime. And that was my stance in the letter. And I look forward to, I believe, at least within a week, I will have a response from them. Should have a response, else I'll send a follow-up letter to that effect to get clarity on that. Because besides the lights being out, it's not just a matter of lights being out, it's more a matter of safety for me, for road users, as well as stores and homes and everyone that use the street lights or make use of the light of the street to protect their property and or themselves while exercising, for example.
Thank you, Minister Duran. Thank you, Bibi. Lyndon, you
And
have.
sorry, you mentioned also in regards to the grass and overgrown. We have contractors that are on a daily basis in different areas working all the time. That has never come to a complete halt. That's just a fact. We also have staff of the Ministry of Environment that work every single day in patching potholes. So that is not now that the royal family is coming and the insinuations that are being made. That is 24/7, and I mentioned this, I believe it was last week as well. So that is continuous, but in regards to the major road surfacing, that is also being done right now. So I don't know what else to explain, but this is just reality of what is taking place. Again, I would love to have all the funds in the world, but the reality is that mismanagement of the past has come to haunt us, and that's why when I discuss the spatial development strategy, I always mention proper planning prevents poor performance. So whatever decisions we make today in terms of our spatial planning, we will definitely see the after effects in 10 years from now. A decision I make today you will not see the effects of it today. So I hope that answers your question, and I look forward every week to coming forward with more updates as we continue to improve our infrastructure to the best of our ability.
Thank you, Minister Duran, and thank you, Bibi. Lyndon, you have the floor.
Question to the Prime Minister. As we look back at the visit of the CARICOM Secretary, Mr. Omar, which was, of course, which was welcome very much. It shows that St. Martin is partly a member of CARICOM, Minister. As say this to say, as Guyana coming into view right now about the visa, presently now the UK scrap all visa for Guyanese national, and other countries are doing it also. Seeing that now Guyana is very essential for businesses, Minister. Presently now Guyanese national need a visa to come to St. Martin. Is this in consideration to drop all visa for Guyanese national? I know the Minister of Justice is not here, but can you weigh in on it, Minister?
I don't know how you're making the connection between our discussion over the weekend and the needs for visas by certain nationals. We are not yet associated members of CARICOM. While we might be able to make use of some of their services, we are benefiting from the SEDEMA connection, that's disaster management. We are busy to finalize the associate state status. Once we have finalized our committee that we are currently setting up, that committee can become a member of the CRC, which is the Reparations Committee of CARICOM. We can apply for that. That has been made clear to me as well. However, any decision making as to who's allowed to travel to the kingdom, because that's not something St. Martin can decide at this point on its own. That's a foreign affairs matter, and foreign affairs are still under the responsibility of the Foreign Affairs Minister, Mr. Hoekstra. So that would be then a discussion if we would want to say it is in the interest of our economic development and or whatever to lift visa requirements for certain countries or certain Caribbean countries specifically, then we would have to table that in a discussion at the 4-country level and get an agreement. It has to then go to the Kingdom Council of Ministers for ratification. So this is something that is coming up now. I will have further deliberations with my Foreign Affairs Department and or the Cabinet of the Governor to find out whether that need or request is possible at this time.
Thank you, Prime Minister Jacobs. Thank you, Lyndon. Andrew Dick, you have the final question.
Thank you, Ms. Roach. The question is for the Prime Minister concerning elections. Has the Council of Ministers decided yet whether it would be November or January 2024?
I think we continue to insist on getting an answer to a question that has been answered already. The official date for the elections are January 2024. If any early elections will be called, you will be notified.
Thank you, Prime Minister Jacobs. Members of the media, this does bring us to the end of the question and answer session. Thank you so much for joining us. Any further questions can be sent to the Minister's Cabinet in writing. Honorable Ministers of the Council, members of the media, radio listeners, and online viewers, this brings us to the end of the live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday, January 25th, 2023. For rebroadcast, tune into St. Martin Gov Radio via 107.9 FM, Tel TV Plus, the official Facebook page of the Government of St. Martin, YouTube channel Government of St. Martin, and TV 15. For video on demand, log on to the Government of St. Martin's YouTube channel. On behalf of the Department of Communication and the Government of St. Martin, I'm Roleka Roche and wishing you a pleasant day further.